All right, that's Butch Walker doing his best Funk 49. How you doing, Butch?
Yeah, I'm good. I tried to play it more correct this time since I got yelled at by the community for not ever for getting one note wrong in there. So please forgive me, guitar community, for getting one note wrong.
We'll give you a second
no,
chance.
anyway.
We gave you
I
a
got a
second
call
chance,
from Joe Walsh called me and said that he was disgraced by it. So.
Well, thank you for doing it a second time, and thank you for doing a rig rundown with us. If people aren't familiar with what we're talking about, you did our very first hook video, which you gave us a great story about, you know, Joe Walsh and Funk 49 and the James Gang kind of sinking its teeth into you and making you a guitar player that you are today.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, he's one of many people that inspired me to learn how to play. So.
Well, that's not what we're here to do today. I'm in Nashville. You're in LA at RubyRed Studios, your personal studio space, and we're going to talk about your gear, man. I really am glad that you're joining us for a rig rundown.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I watch these all the damn time, and I'm like, I want to do one.
But as it's known, Butch is obviously a great singer-songwriter, guitar player, musician, started as a drummer, but also, man, I can't wait to pick your ear about producing, because you've done Green Day, Keith Urban, Taylor Swift, Weezer, Fall Out Boy, and one of my favorite movies of the last few years is Peanut Butter Falcon. That was a great soundtrack and an awesome movie.
It's an incredible movie. My friend Tyler used to crash over at my studio a lot whenever he was living in Venice. The guy who wrote and directed the movie.
Oh, right.
And he would actually bring Zach, the kid with Down syndrome. He would bring him by the studio, and we would do sessions there and everything. Just, you know, I loved how he like normalized, you know, a kid with Downs, because you know, people like movie studios didn't want to touch that movie because of the subject matter, and I think that that's really crazy, because they're just normal people that can function, you know, just like the rest of us. So it was really cool that he took a chance on this kid Zach and made that movie.
Dude, he stole the show. He stole the show for sure.
So good, so good.
Well, man, let's just start right where what you got in your hands. Your nice Telecaster bound. What's the story on this?
Yeah, this is a Custom Shop Tele Custom that, you know, with the double binding, you know, a la Andy Summers vibe, and Joe Walsh. And I really love this guitar. It came to me by accident, because Fender, who I've had a relationship for a long time, they were sending me a new guitar, and this came instead. And
really?
it was the wrong guitar, but I played it and I fell in love with it, and I was like, can I just keep this one instead and cancel the other one? And they said, nope, no problem. And this has become probably my favorite Tele of all time. It is obviously not an old one, so it's not. I'm not a purist. I don't care about whether or not it's a 50s or 60s or a vintage guitar. I mean, quite honestly, I can tell you more later about that. But it's like after you lose 50 vintage guitars in a fire, you stop worrying about being precious about shit, and you worry more about what's actually functional to you and what do you like. Because, you know, I probably had like 50 vintage guitars when I lost everything in a fire 13 years ago, and I didn't play half of them because half of them played like shit and didn't sound great. And so I was like, well, I think I'm just going to really care about what I like now and what's functional, because I make enough music and enough records and play on tour a lot that life's too short just to have something live in a case or behind a glass case or on the wall just because it's a trophy. I don't care about that. Yeah. So this one I really love. And matter of fact, to add to even more sacrilege, I replaced the pickups with Fishman pickups. These are the Greg Koch Gristle-tone.
Yeah, those Fluence pickups.
Oh my God, they're incredible. I mean, I never thought I'd want to, ever since my EMG metal days back in the day, I would ever want a battery that, you know, a battery powered pickup system or whatever, a rechargeable DC one, in this case, where there's a tiny USB down here, you know, that you plug into, but you don't have to charge it, like, you know, but it lasts like 3,000 hours. And I mean, dude, I don't play 3,000 hours worth of guitar in a year. So, sadly, because I'm busy producing guitar most of the time. But it's actually amazing, because they put this little switch here that when you play it, hear that boost? So it's like
that's a solo.
You pop it out. Yeah. Yeah, and it's to emulate like the black, versus whatever the traditional wiring was for tele pickups with the extra mid boost and all that. And man, it's just super functional. I really like it, and it plays great, and I can dig into it, and just real spanky. It's just got a. So it's really fun, and this is my go-to telly, and I've got plenty more tellies, but this is the one.
Well, I was gonna say, man, you're like a guitar guy in the sense that sometimes people play team sports and Gibson versus Fender, or they line up, but you strike me as a guy that whatever the job needs to get done. But I do see you most with the Tele or Strat. So do you feel that yourself, or are you just kind of open to whatever speaks to you?
I am so an open book when it comes to guitars, because I've gone through, I'm 50 and I've gone through so many phases since my like teenage metalhead youth, where I started on, Ibanez, and then I think one of my first real guitars was a Fender. It was a Fender Music Master, and when I started getting good enough to where I could play and gig for a living, which is relative, obviously, but I did it full time. I found myself being first a Strat guy. I really like the Strat body style. It really, it just fits me right, and it's comfortable to play. And I've gone through having so many Strats over the years, Fender Strats, whatever kind of Strats, knockoff Strats, everything. And then in the 90s, I went through a Les Paul phase, where I had like some old 70s Les Pauls I really loved, and that was more in my like hard rock band days, where I wanted a beefier like humbucker tone, and Les Pauls were obviously in the late 80s, thanks to Slash, they had a resurgence and became popular, and so I found myself with a couple of good Les Pauls that I still wish I had, and I don't. And then in the late 90s, mid 90s, I started just gravitating into the telly world, and that's where for a good decade, and even to this day, I still love picking up a telly. But yeah, I mean, hollow bodies, 335 style bodies, semi hollows, you name it. There's just all guitars matter.
What about to bring it to something specific? American Love Story, your great concept record that just came out this year, not too long ago. What was like a heavy hitter on that? I know that I'm sure you used a lot to color that record, but what was a big hitter on that?
Let me grab it and I'll show you. So,
excellent.
So this guitar, which is, I just picked this up just recently, but I ended up using it for the live stream of the record. This is an Ernie Ball Music Man Sabre, which I love this thing. It is, when they finally came back out with a Strat body style double humbucker, almost like a 80s LA hot rod Strat guitar, Not to mention, I'm not just doing endorsement plugs here. I want to actually show you the guitar that did the beef of that record as well, which is based on this, and this is a Custom Shop. This is a Fender spray over Shoreline Gold spray over Sunburst. This is a master built Custom Shop Strat with a 69 reverse left-handed neck, and with double shawbuckers in it. And this thing sounds incredible. So actually, I think I'm going to plug that in, because it's actually this is the one that actually. Sorry,
no worries.
I'm doing this by myself. I don't have a fancy. I can't have my tech bring me my cheese plate and my guitars for me right now. So
was that commissioned, or is that something they came to you with?
I custom designed it myself.
Okay.
It's obviously not a. It's not a. It's its own thing,
Yeah.
But they. really fun guitar, you know. Sounds really good and plays really good. I took it on tour right after I got it, you know, broke it in real nice, and it played the bulk of the record. And then I got the Sabre, obviously, to kind of be the yin to this yang, because I don't know why I was just really, really, really into getting back into my Steve Lukather love, and he just he was like, you know, he was also a huge influence on me growing up back in the early, you know, the late 70s, early 80s Toto.
Yeah, man. Toto,
vibes.
Michael Jackson,
And
yeah.
Yeah, and you've done Rig Rundown with him before, and he's just one of the coolest guys on the planet. One of the best moments, one of my favorite NAMM moments, was last year getting to walk up to him and tell him what he meant to me. And you know, as a kid growing up and learning melodic guitar with a ripping tone and all that, and that's like, he epitomized that with just the most tasteful solos and memorable and hooky, and he just grabbed my face and he started like telling me what a fan he was of mine, and it blew my mind. I was like, I couldn't believe he even knew. I was like, you don't know me from shit? And he goes, oh no, I do. And he started rattling off records and stuff, and I was like, this is awesome.
Do you still enjoy going to NAMM? Like, as a complete sidebar, do you still enjoy NAMM? Is NAMM a thing you like to do?
I think it's just like with alcohol, in moderation, you know? And sometimes it takes alcohol to deal with NAMM. But it's more just my anxiety goes through the roof, because I'm like, it's like it's in the world's largest guitar center versus a casino, is what it feels like. And I don't enjoy either one of those. So, but I do love going to see the companies that support me, and I love going and seeing new gear, and it's just sensory overload. But
I get
also
that.
just, man, getting the random like, you know, Carmine Appice sighting and Billy Sheehan sighting and all that is like, it reminds me, is like, God, I've been coming to NAMM since like 1988, hasn't changed at all.
Well,
yeah, and then that's where I fell in love with this guitar. Was I went over to the NAMM booth to see my guys at Music Man, because Derek Brooks, the guy at NAMM, at Ernie Ball, he used to do a tape duplication business, CD and tape duplication business in Atlanta, where I grew up, and he used to make all of my band's copies of our independent records, and he would ship them to us on the road, and we'd be sitting in the van folding J cards and packaging them to sell them at the shows. And Derek and I had a close relationship, and now he's obviously up the totem pole there at you know, at the company, and so when I saw this over there in the booth, they were debuting the Sabre.
Yeah.
I just picked it up off the wall and played it and was like, oh, come on, man. So had to have one.
what do you like about the double humbucker setup in a, you know, Strats or you know, traditionally 3, you know, single coils? So what do you like about the double hum?
You know, well, the word is hum, right? So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I like the fact that there is none, but also just if you need a little bit more bite for solos and stuff, and they really tailored these pickups great. These are the stock pickups that come in them, and this neck pickup is really like bitey. Like, it's spanky and has a top end to it. It's not so, you can really dig into it, and it doesn't sound like this. You know, like all muddy.
Yeah.
So, and then the bridge pickup is more beefy. So it's really just a meat and potatoes guitar, and the whammy stays in tune. It doesn't go out of tune when you use it, which is how novel.
Yeah.
You know, and then and it's just balanced, and the neck is like, I mean, dude, I want to make sweet love to this neck. It's like, it's so gorgeous to play, and it's small and fast and has like a really cool, you know, grippiness to it that I like. And
do you like or buy into the roasting? You know, that people, especially Ernie Ball, I want to say, kind of pioneered, or they brought that to the market, and everyone's kind of jumped on in certain regards. Do you buy into the roasting effect and how that feels?
Well, I'm sure I'll get roasted in the comment section for not knowing this, but like I don't know what the fuck it does. All I know is it looks cool as shit.
Yeah.
I don't know that it doesn't. What does it do? Does it do something to the tone? If it does, it sure does sound good. But what I mean, I think it's also, is it a thing of like the stability, right?
Yeah.
So that it
kinda
stays in
dries out
tune
the wood.
better.
Yeah, it's supposed to
Right.
age the
Yeah.
instrument.
But the same reason I bought the first Kiss album, because of the cover, you know, I picked this up and said, "Oh, that's sexy." But no, it just feels and plays good, and I guess if that's what it does, it sure does stay in tune good, you know.
Does it still, because like, correct me if I'm wrong, on American Love Story, like a song like Gridlock or Pretty Crazy has that quintessential Strat tone. Between that, the Custom Shop one or the Sabre, does that still have like what we hear, that slinky, springy Strat?
Yeah, let me think of what I used on that. I know I used for the solo on it. I used the double humbucker Strat,
Okay.
which is basically what this does, and then on the and I probably used for the rhythm sounds, I used either that or my SA2200 Yamaha, just for a big warm neck 335 style semi-hollow. I can show you that guitar if you want to see it.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. It's this guitar, they made this for me for my specs, because I got a white one that I loved. That was just a traditional double humbucker, and then they made me this.
Man, that's great. I love the 3 humbuckers.
Oh, me too. I was like, I really want a triple humbucker guitar, but I'm gonna do some, Jerry Garcia shit to all of this, and because I'm not a big fan of tons of volume and tones and all that. That's one thing I couldn't get with on a Les Paul was I like one volume for all the pickups, one tone for all the pickups. Just like on a Strat, except for there's 2 tones. But so what I did is I had them basically take the existing cavities for the pots, and up here where the 3-way switch was, I put the volume, master volume, because I like it to be close to me, because I do this all the time, because I do a lot of like cleaning my guitar up with this. I don't channel switch. So that would have been kind of like the tone on Gridlock, right? And then open it up, and then, go. You can, so it's like, what we did is we filled these holes here with coil taps.
Oh.
So, and it's a 5-way position. So it's almost like it's a wolf in sheep's clothing,
Yeah.
So you can get like you can get like like this is kind of fun. So if I go, sorry if it's buzzing, that's single quiver, So like you can get the out of phase thing, and then go back to humbucker, and it does it. It kind of does it.
Yeah,
does it
man.
all.
Yeah, it does it all.
And again, just beautiful. Like they really do a good job. And man, I know a lot of people might overlook and think that like, oh, okay, it's a whatever, it's a Japanese company or it's Yamaha, and they make motorboats and stuff. But like their guitar company has been, if you ask me, they've been on top of this shit since the 70s, and even before in the 60s when they were making acoustic guitars. They were making like the FG180s and things like that, like really solid built guitars. And I've got a bunch of those too. I love the old vintage Yamahas. I've got a SG2000, which is the the double cutaway.
Yeah, like a Santana.
Exactly that guitar. That's where he made that guitar famous, and it kind of was the predecessor to the PRS, with the double cutaway. And when he went to a PRS basically that was like that, which I love as well. I have a beautiful white PRS. I just don't have enough guitar stands to have all of my favorite guitars out. So that's guitar problems, right?
Yeah, no.
But yeah, this is that guitar. When I got that, I was like, oh man, I forgot how great these were. Like they're just their craftsmanship and everything is like second to none. They really care about it, and if they don't get it right, they'll take it back and get it more than right.
Yeah, don't
and
sleep
Pat,
on their craftsmanship. We went over
No.
to Japan for we've toured Takamine and ESP in October, and man, Japanese, they are second to none when it comes to everything, but guitar building specifically.
Oh yeah, and Pat, he's the master luthier over here in Calabasas in California, and he built this from scratch. He's amazing too, and he's just a very, very like overqualified luthier. So yeah, they've been really good to me and made me some really cool instruments. This one included. I really love this thing, and it's unique, you know, and it's catered to my needs. Where like we relocated the switch in the pick guard because I don't want to reach all over the guitar, and I don't want it right here because I'm kind of like Bam Bam. I'm like Bam Bam when I play, and it's just everything gets hit and knocked out of tune, and so it's like this is great because I can just be, you know, I can just be playing and then flick it, play. Just doesn't get in the way. If I'm having to like sing and yell at some guy in the audience for being a dick and like still play a solo, I don't want to have to like look at the guitar the whole time. So this guitar I don't have to look at, you know.
At that point, you're able to perform. You're not having to overthink things.
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, I see the Les Paul before we move on to your acoustics behind you. Let's talk about that Les Paul. And while you're getting that, Butch, I know that you're Ernie Ball guy. I've watched your string theory video a few times. So tell everyone, obviously Ernie Ball, but what do you use? Slinkies, power slinkies, and what gauge?
Yes, I've been using slinkies for since the Ice Age. I don't even know how long now. But I use the purple pack, which is the I believe it's 11 through 46, if I'm not mistaken. And again, I apologize, guitar people. I'm so not a technical guy. You'll see when you see my pedal board, I look like a mess. But I just know it's kind of like it's like the equivalent of like when, you know, when somebody was joking about a rich politician, they quoted, they're like, how much is a jar of mayonnaise these days? $500? You know, it's like that's kind of how I am about gear. It's like, what am I playing? I don't know. Does it have 6 strings on it? I'll play it. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, but I do know that my tech box has the purple packs in it, and I've been using the purples for years and years and years, and they're just, you know, they're just great strings. And
I've read and heard, Butch, that over time, have you not, and correct me again if I'm wrong, is you've gone up in string gauge through your career. I remember, I read that you started at 9s, and maybe that was when you were a younger player, that's what you could get. But you went to 10s, and now you're at 11s. Do you ever see yourself going to 12s?
I tried 12s for a little while just because of Stevie Ray Vaughan or something, and I was like, who am I kidding? I don't have that strength in my hands. And, you know, I see a lot of guys, too, like when they start like getting over the arc, they go back down to like 9s, and they're just like, I just want it to be easy. And I respect that, because when I pick up a guitar at a store and it's got really light strings on it and you're ripping, you're like, oh man, why is this thing so easy to play? Oh, okay. You know, but I find that live 11s are much more utilitarian for me, as far as, you know, they stay in tune better for me. I play so much harder and I bend way more because I'm just full of like ridiculous energy on stage, and I can't help it, and I'm just a spaz.
Yeah.
So I think the heavier gauge string controls me a little bit and makes my playing not end up sounding like you know, a guy with a nerve condition, you know, where I'm not just like going, you know, when I play. So that being said, this guitar still has the same strings on it from when I bought it from Norm.
Wow.
So and these are light gauge strings, and they go out of tune like crazy on me. So it might just go out of tune by looking at it and talking about it. Yeah, it's kind of okay at the moment. But I picked this guitar up. My buddy Todd Weisenbaker, you know, he's over at Norm's, and it's a cool cat, and he posted a picture of this guitar, and I immediately text him and I go, bro, what's the deal with that guitar? And he sent me the pictures of the guy who owned it all through his career. Apparently he was one of the top 5 session guys in Los Angeles, and his name was Jimmy Stewart. like the actor.
Yeah.
But and he played on a lot of records, and there's pictures of him from the '80s with this exact guitar with the weird coil tapping additions. And that was the thing. I was really, really wanting another Les Paul. All I have is a Les Paul that I keep at my studio in Tennessee. That is it's like a VOS standard.
Okay.
Tobacco Sunburst, which is beautiful. After the fires, I didn't have a single electric guitar. And my good friend Pink, who I'd worked on a bunch of her records, literally went out and bought me that guitar and brought it over to my house. And
That's
I
awesome.
cried, and I was like, ah, because it was my only electric guitar. So I was missing having one, especially out here where I'm out in the West Coast making records a lot of the time. So it's like I wanted a custom. I was really dying for a custom because, ever since Frampton Comes Alive, and even to a more metal degree, the first couple of Motley Crue records, Mick Mars with his, I believe his was like a 73 or something. Someone will correct me in the comments, but it's a 72, a 73 or whatever. This was a 72. With already had DiMarzio creams in it, and it's just it's a rockin' guitar. So it does the thing, it's like super fun. That's with some gain on it, but see, it went out of tune. It said "fuck Billy Squire."
Yeah, right.
I love Billy, but this is a great guitar, and it needs a proper setup and new strings on it clearly. But man, I've been too busy picking it up and using it on records to change the fucking strings. So, it's like I'll stop and tune it every 10 seconds and just keep going.
Yeah.
But man, I love this thing. It's a rock and roll machine.
How long have you had it?
I've had it for about 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, let's talk about some of those acoustics behind you.
Let's do. So this is one of my favorite guitars at the moment, and it is a. I collect these old harmonies, and I collect them to mostly have the work done by my buddy Scott Baxendale, who is now in Athens, Georgia, right up the road from where I was born.
Yeah, a lot of the drive-by
And,
trucker guys get stuff done by him.
Right, and so you can see in the sound hole, that's his, whatever, his thing.
Yep.
But, he goes through these old Silvertone harmonies and Kies and takes them completely apart, rebraces them, refrets, rebridges, everything is like, he just gets it to be professionally, done. And it's the grade and craftsmanship of these guitars was underwhelming when they came out because they were good wood. Some even have rumored that it was like Martin scrap wood from the '60s, and they just assembled the guitars kind of shitty,
Yeah.
and sold them at department stores for $100. So you could get like Sears and Woolworths and J.C. Penney, and all these guys had their own guitars. They had K, they had Silvertone Harmony, all that. So these Harmony Sovereigns are obviously great guitars, but once Scott does the work to them, they're just. Now I don't have that plugged in, so you can't really hear it over here. But I'll show you one plugged in, or I'll show you my next guitar plugged in through what I use for acoustic,
Gotcha.
for live, for tracking. But this on a really good mic is just like it's just butter, and they just play and sound so good. And this is my favorite guitar to record right now. One of my favorite acoustics, and I've got a decent amount of them.
What were you using with American Love Story? Because that, if not, has acoustic songs, but a lot of it is layered with acoustic guitars. I know that's kind of your thing, where you take an acoustic guitar and double it with, the electric rhythm part. I think that's a really kind of a hallmark of yours.
Yeah, so like even on that song Gridlock you're talking about, that's actually my Yamaha 12 string, which is not in the picture here, but I have whatever the equivalent of like the LL26, it's like the 12 or whatever. That's my 12 string go-to guitar that I use in the studio, and it just tracks really well, plays easy. You can actually capo it and it works, And then And then I used this guitar a lot, which this is really a special guitar to me because this is one of their master-built LL56s, which is based off of it's the updated version of I want to say it was the L55, which was the John Denver model that they made for him in the 70s, which was just beautiful. I mean, all with all the crazy pearl abalone inlay and binding around the edges and stuff. And so this is obviously a less glammy version of it, but they only make a few of these a year by hand, and I begged and pleaded for them to make me one of these, and this thing just sounds amazing. And maybe this is a good time for me to show you what I'm using for live, because the only way you're going to hear this through here is if I were to record it. Well, you can hear it like through the microphone that is picking up my voice. Really beautiful, balanced, slope shoulder, cool guitar. Love it.
Do you tour with that one? Do you tour? Is that like a live guitar you'd also use too, or no? It's too special?
No. It doesn't leave here. What I use live is they have a reissue of what's called the FG 180, which is the big folk guitar in the 60s, and I have one FG 180 with double batwing pick guards and my name monogrammed. It's kind of cool. And then I use a LL26, which is just under this one as far as in the the master built line or whatever you want to call them. And it's a great guitar. The LL26 is super solid. And so I'm using between that and the FG 180.
What do you like to kind of unpack? We were bringing up Gridlock constantly here, but to use that song as an example of like why you pair acoustic or even a 12-string, your Yamaha, with an electric guitar rather than just stacking guitar tracks on top of guitar tracks. Why do you do?
You mean like as far as like accenting acoustic parts with electric and vice versa? It's just like I love the sound of it. Lindsey Buckingham always did it back in the day, and the record American Love Story is like very much a walkthrough of the soundtrack on the radio at that time in my life, which would have been the late 70s, early 80s, of when you went from like things being like all this AM gold on the radio, and then into like the early 80s when things started getting a little more hi-fi and slick and big sounding. But I just always loved the way Lindsey Buckingham layered guitars, and he would do that on so many records where you would hear a 12-string acoustic doubled with a electric line, and it's just such a unique sound that is hard to get with anything on its own.
It kind of reminds me of like Jeff Lynne too. He would do something like that sometimes too. He would use a 12-string to kind of accent stuff.
Exactly.
Cool. Is there another one last one behind you there?
There is. So that is the newest addition to the family that I've been using on records as well. And it's a Taylor Grand Pacific, which is their new line. Sorry, all my shit's got dust all over it, and it's not because it doesn't get played. It's just dusty here. But this is a really fun little, small body guitar. I actually just put an aftermarket pick guard on it because they didn't come with pick guards. And
I love the pick guard.
And this thing's got such a great it's just a cool sounding. It's got such a interesting mid-range to it, just a real pronounced mid-range, which to me, when recording, it's what I end up scooping everything out and leaving in to sit with drums, bass, and electric guitar, so you can really hear the acoustic. Because if obviously you can't just get this big boomy bottom, heavy acoustic sound and it work in a mix. So this guitar really cuts through in the mix, as they say, and it really does do that. For lack of a better cliche, that's actually this guitar, and I really love it. It's really well made and just sounds and plays great.
Do you will you capo that one, or are there specific guitars that you capo to try and either to use Nashville tuning, or do you to change the timbre of stuff to kind of to add?
Yes, I actually do. Let me pull one that's not in view. And man, I apologize in advance if this thing's out of tune because it's in a Nashville tuning and it hasn't been played in a minute. So, oh yeah, it's a, sorry, it should be in tune, but it's not. But this is a this is my old actually my sister. She gave me this guitar. It was her ex-boyfriend's, and I think there was nothing that made her happier to than to get rid of it, but also to give it to me after the fires. So she gave me this little LG2, I think it's called, right? And it's just such a really cool guitar that you can't put heavy gauge strings on them anyway because it's short scale and everything. The neck bows out and everything, and so I made this my like my Nashville tuning guitar, which is just all the high strings from a 12-string set, basically. It tracks really well. And I think I used this on the record as well, sometimes where it might have sounded like a 12-string.
Okay.
Yeah, as an extra layer. So that's a fun little guy.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool, I'm back.
All right. Well, Butch, maybe we can grab another electric. Maybe I'll let you choose your electric, and then you can talk to us about the amp we've been hearing, and then dive through your pedal board.
Well, the amp that I've been using the most in the studio these days has been my buddy John Thompson over at Bad Cat. He's been making some really amazing amps. Bad Cat's just, to me, making killer shit right now. And they've got this amp that, ever since I heard a demo of it online, was the Cub 440R. And I fell in love with it. It was like the tone that I like, which is like a really kind of a sparkly, glassy, almost Fender Bassman meets AC30 vibe, Like that's my favorite tone over, say, like the Marshall tone, which I love Marshalls, but I like an amp with one channel where I can just roll the volume down a little bit and it cleans up, or just play it lightly and it's like, that's like volume all the way up, Or you can dig in, right? And then they take pedals really well, because obviously if you need a little more bite, then I'll put like I've got my own signature RubyRed pedal by JHS that they made for me. It was a limited edition. They only made a few of them, and we sold out of them, and they haven't made them since. But I still use it, funny enough, on my board all the time, and it just gives you a little extra. It's basically based off of their Superbolt pedal, which I fell in love with, which is kind of like based on a Supro amplifier, and so it's an overdrive but not distortion, and you get like you get the characteristic of the amp, but with more hair, if you like. And it's also two pedals. One is a clean boost, and the other one is the overdrive section. So when I'm you'll see on this pedal board, this is let's call it my touring pedal board for most purposes, which is very small micro board. One of those Chalks setups for power with the Pedal Train Nano Plus board. And this pedal gives me two stages of gain, if I need it together. So it's like when I play it without it, and then I kick it in. Right, so and then I have that running through what it's doing is it's running through the effects loop of I'm running a 4-cable method right now, actually, on this Bad Cat, because it has an effects loop. And what I've got is, and I love this pedal, is the Line 6 Helix Stomp. And, because I'll show you my other pedal board, which is my expanded all pedal board, and it basically is mimicking everything inside of that I have in pedals that I can't fit on the Pedal Train Nano board,
Yeah.
Because because on my big board I've got like a carbon copy MXR, I've got a MXR reverb, I've got an Echoplex pedal delay, I've got a like a Klon copy, I've got a Chorus MXR, I've got a RubyRed pedal, I've got a orange squeezer pedal, a tuner. It's a lot of stuff, right? I mean, for a guy who doesn't like a lot of pedals. And so to make things simple and compact, I made this board, and I picked up the HX Stomp, which, I mean, if you want to split hairs and compare the original to the emulations in the Stomp, sure, there's going to be some differences. But can I find something in there that sounds bitchin' when I like kick it on? Yeah, I can. And so I set it up, and I've set it up where it's in basically snapshot mode. It has 3 switches, and for me, what works is one block in it is an effects loop block, and that effects loop block is to kick in and out the RubyRed pedal.
Okay.
Because I want that independent. I don't want to emulate that, and so I have that where I can do it, right, and then if I go to the second snapshot, I get slapback. And the amp reverb is on right now, so I just don't want to run over there and cut it off, so sorry. But it's always kind of on, because I like to have that, just for that, And then I tend to like a slapback sound, And that's the second snapshot. And then when I go to the third, it's it's full on. I can get the
Straight to Andy Summers.
right. Oh, yeah. And I've got like a it's like a MXR compressor pedal in the first block, basically, that comes on when I flip on that third snapshot, and then the Boss like CE2 chorus style is on, and then oh, and I didn't mention this, but if I've got an expression pedal made by Dunlop that basically will always on is a long delay, like a wash, and I can add this in. So and that's always, I can swell that in and out if I want it, and that's kind of nice if I need it for like a solo thing or something like that, So
Yeah,
that's an extra.
You use reverb in a real tasteful way in your recordings. I know that like plate reverb, sometimes you'll overload that, so that swell effect, does that come in to kind of emulate that?
Yeah, and I'll use it. In and out a lot, and then third, I've got this DMC Micro. It's basically just a MIDI relay switch that you can use as a. That's the thing I like about the Stomp is it only has 3 foot switches, but if you need to hook up extra sources for extra bypassing and swelling in delays and assigning any parameters to any foot switch, there's a ton of the outputs on it for that. So I've got it MIDI'd to this DMC pedal, and I've got it assigned to a switch. So when I hit it, it turns on a. It's either like a Timmy pedal or a Klon pedal simulation. But so if I. So that's kind of fun. So it just gives me an extra. It gives me an extra gain stage if I need more than the RubyRed, or if I want it to, let's say I want to assign it to a fuzz, then I can make that hit, for a fuzz or something like that. So I find just for like, for versatility and a very small footprint, this pedal board has been working for me a ton.
Would you
So I love it.
would you mind going through the bigger pedal board and kind of showing us what the traditional stomps you got there?
Sure. Now the bigger pedal board is not hooked up right now.
Okay.
But I can at least, I can tell you what's on it again if
Yeah,
you want.
yeah.
So it starts with, it goes into a Polytune, TC Electronics Polytune, which I actually have the small version of the Polytune on my little micro board as well.
Okay.
Because I really love it. I appreciate the tuners built into everything these days, but I always want an external tuner, especially if it's true bypass. And I think the TC ones and the Boss ones work the best. So I have that going into an orange squeezer pedal by JHS, which is, a great compressor pedal for being able to blend wet and dry into it, and also add a gain grit if you need it. And then that goes into my RubyRed signature pedal. And then it goes into a conspiracy theory pedal by Way Huge, which is sort of like their it's kind of like their clone on a budget. Because whatever, again, I had expensive, rare vintage pedals that all burned in a fire, and I was like, never again.
Yeah.
I'll find something that works and sounds good, that I can sleep at night knowing it actually sounds okay, And then I've got an Echoplex pedal, the Dunlop MXR Echoplex pedal going in there, which I really love that. And I've got a little MXR tap tempo button next to it. And then it's going into a carbon copy delay as well, so that I can have, basically the Echoplex, I like it as a slapback, because I still think the Echoplex tape echo for slap is, you just can't get any better. It's like it's the Jimmy Page,
Yeah.
sound that I love of his Les Paul or his Telly through a Marshall or a Supro or whatever. And then with the Echoplex, because the Echoplex also drives,
It has that preamp.
it drives. Yeah, and that preamp pedal they make is awesome as well, but I just didn't have room for it on this board. And then the MXR Carbon Copy I use is like a long washy delay that I can actually kick in and out if I want for solos and stuff. Then it goes into an MXR Reverb pedal, which I also find to be a kick-ass digital reverb pedal that does all the flurb and the weird shit, but also it just does a great spring reverb. And then finally it goes out into the stereo chorus, which is the MXR stereo chorus, which is one of my favorite stereo choruses there is. And then I have the option of running that out stereo to 2 amps or 1. And it
Cool.
sounds great.
Right on, man. And what
Yeah.
about, we kind of go backwards here, but what about picks? We talked about strings, but what do you use for picks? Do you have any preference?
Yes, thank you to Keith Urban for making my life flip upside down, literally, with the Herco. And because I play like this with the upside down butt end of the pick, because I like the scrapey, the serrated edge. I used to hate these kind of picks. I'd be like, ooh, weird grippy shit on a pick, ooh, And so I was always just using whatever Fender mediums and heavies and extra heavies and all that. These are this we consider the heavy gauge, and for electric I use that, and for acoustic I use the medium gauge nylon Herco. But there's a thing that it does when you're like, when you're like. So that's with the normal, and then when you go to the butt end, it just has I play very hard, and so it actually just complements. It gets a scrape to the string, which actually adds almost like a top end or a percussive element to the tone, and that was a Keith Urban trick when we were making that Fuse record on some of the songs on it. He's like, mate, you gotta, he was like, you gotta try these. Sorry, Mike, I almost went full Aussie, which I cannot do. And then that basically became my pick, and I can't play without him now. Yeah. So I'm always calling up the guys and going like, please, I need another bag.
There's another, when we did a rig rundown with the Edge, we did with his tech Dallas, and he said that the Edge does the same thing. I don't think he uses
that
Herco,
sound.
but he did that.
But that's where he gets that real kind of like, that really. He gets a real scrapey, strat, like clean, glassy thing with that, and there's just something about like a serrated edge that does that. Same reason that when Billy Gibbons was using a peso for years, it's that it's got like a scrape when it hits the strings. Brian May too, using the
sixpence.
Yes, and so you can hear it, man. Especially when they clean up, you can just hear that scrape on the string, and it's, to me, I think it's a dope sound. So I love using those.
Are there any other tricks that maybe, I mean, not to like, you know, have you divulge too much, but are there any other tricks that being a producer, but also being a guitarist that's also a musician that you've picked up working with other artists that have kind of fell into your repertoire or fell into how you look at the instrument?
That pick one was one of the big ones for me. Is that simple? Like literally a 75-cent pick. I was like, okay, that changes a lot, because it changed how I approach the gain stage to amps, because you can actually cheat and use less gain by hitting harder and having that edge to it, so to speak, the edge, and it gives you a thing that just almost is like it's almost like natural overdrive, you know, and so that, and I think over the years I just go through different phases of how I like my amps to react and respond, and how hard I drive them versus how hard I don't, and what kind of amps I'm using, and I mean that's kind of the beauty of music and guitar and electronics and amplification, is that you can just find something that's inspiring to you every couple of years, and then all of a sudden you go down that rabbit hole and live there for a while comfortably, and then come back out and go, okay, what else you got? And then I'll get inspired by something else. But I'm always learning, you know. I feel like I'm always learning, especially in the studio. Producing, some kid will come in and I'll work on their record and I'll learn something from them, or an old pro will come in and I'll learn something, a tip or a trick from them. So it's a beautiful thing to be doing it for this long and still learning and realizing I don't know shit.
Well, it's a good attitude to have, to be open-minded, where I'm sure a lot of people like yourself, like, you know, you have such a litany of artists you've worked with and discographies and, you know, credits, but you still have an open mind, and I think that's always, you know, you can use that everywhere we go, not just as musicians, but as people too.
Agreed.
Man, and while we have you, just one last question. Not only about what we're hearing, but how are you miking, and how are you miking up your cab? Are you going direct? How are people hearing it? And also, what about mics, and how important are they to you in terms of recording, and then also what you try to do live?
Well, I love doing this because it always fucks with people. Is I like saying, you know, oh, everything you've heard right now is direct through a Helix, or everything you've heard right now is a mic'd up cabinet with a vintage U67 on it. I'd rather let people decide, but I'll tell you right now that actually, but for not only for convenience, but also I really love the sound of it, and I use it in the studio now as much as I do a mic'd cabinet, is my UA aux. Oh. And that is what we're going through right now. And I've got it on a custom 212 cabinet that's it's almost like a one of those custom boutique 212s with Alnico 50s in it, so to speak, with like a ribbon, Biodynamic ribbon 160 and a U67 mic simulation on the cabinet, blending in the room mic, and with an 1176 compressor on it and a little bit of EQ. And man, between that and some of the 412s and the little 112 closed back cabinets they got in there, it's amazing what I can get out of my amps, because I'm using my real amps. And right now we're using the Bad Cat Cub 440R right into the aux. And man, I love it. It just sounds dope. And that's pretty much on every record now. So that's what you've been listening to.
What about
for better or for worse?
For live situation, you know, whenever the touring happens again, and what you had been using on previous tours, what do you pour over the ideas of what you can take on the road when it comes to mics, or do you let it go knowing that there's so many things that happen between your guitar and what people hear in the crowd? Do you have a specific mic you bring with you?
I can tell you this. I used to be very specific about that. In my cabinets, I would always have like I would either have like a, you know, a Sennheiser, I think it was the 402, I can't remember, the flat mic. I'd use that, or even bring out my Royers for a ribbon. But it just became so dicey bringing out high-end microphones like that I'd be like, fuck it, just put a 57 on it. Mm-hmm. And it sounded great, but I got to say, when I go back out, I'll be using the aux. I'm going to take the aux. Because not only that, but you can attenuate it as well. And like you can crank your amp and attenuate it going to your cabinet. And it doesn't even matter if you have a cabinet plugged into this one. You don't have to with the aux, which is actually cool. But I do run it through a cabinet so I can actually bring in to monitor, which is what we're doing right now. We're monitoring in the room at half volume through a cabinet. But what you'll hear it coming through the aux. And also it sounds consistent. As long as your amp is running consistent every night, it sounds exactly the same in front of house every night, which is beautiful. And if you don't like it, you can change it to any cabinet, any mic, any simulation, whatever you want. So that piece has blown me away. Out of some of the creations in the last few years, that one has really blown me away.
Well, we'll get you out of here on this, and I know this is not related, but it sort of is because we all come from somewhere. I just want to throw you a shout out for doing this awesome fan-generated Father's Day video on your Instagram a couple days ago, because as we're filming this, Father's Day was Sunday. And that was a really cool tribute that you kind of got the fans involved, and that was something, I knew the song well before because it's been out in previous records, but it was cool that you incorporated that, and it's, everyone's hopefully got a dad in their life or at some point and that they were close to, and it's cool.
Yeah, anybody that out there is at odds with their parents, with your dad, call your dad because they're not going to be around forever. So that was a good tribute. That was a nice tribute to my dad as well. So.
Yeah, man. Thank you for doing that. I had my dad in town this weekend. We hit the river. It was good. It was a good time.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Butch. I appreciate you all the way from California here in Tennessee. Thank you again for another Rig Rundown.
Thanks, man.